Hello crafters and welcome to the Hobby Maker tutorial YouTube channel. I'm James Hembrow and I thought as part of our stamping and intro to ink pads we could have a little look at just how you could turn around and actually stamp onto ceramic tiles in your kitchen, garden pots, even timber and wood projects and even craft foils. So I'm going to show you right now the sorts of ink pads and tools that you need to create those stunning effects. And I just want to show you some of the different techniques that you can use with StazOn. So what I've got here is actually a piece of craft foil that I've just laid down flat onto a piece of cardstock, and it's just a piece of metal that I'm going to lay flat down onto my craft sheet like so. That'll just stick into position. Now there's nothing stopping you going ahead even using something like a really thick aluminium foil or tin foil, as long as it's flattened out. It's just to show you an example what you can use on a non-porous surface, so something where the ink can't soak in readily like cardstock can. So I'm going to place that one in the middle. Now this is a great technique, just to give you an example where you may want to do this. Why would you want to necessarily stamp on metal? I mean, it could be it's a metal tin, it could be a three-dimensional project, it could be a piece of furniture, it could even be something out in the garden. That's the great thing with these pigment inks. They are actually really good for outdoor projects as well. So let's have a look at the black StazOn. Now I showed you earlier on, it's got that little protective cover. We're going to remove that one. I'm using a red rubber stamp. If you've watched other videos, you'll know why that's important when I'm using my solvent-based StazOn dye ink pad, because it's just going to be able to stand up to the solvents in this ink and it's not going to deteriorate or cause any problems whatsoever with my ink pad, with my rubber stamp, sorry. Where a clear stamp, I would just have to work a little bit quicker because I'd be wanting to clean the ink off of that stamp a lot quicker. Right, so I'm just going to go in normal stamping process, nothing different, actually just very light pressure because this is going to sit on the surface. I don't have to let it work into the fibres of any cardstock or anything like that. Let it sit and transfer. I'm just going to show you, I'm going to go back in with another stamp of that. That's not bad, that's already on there, it looks absolutely striking, but I think I can go back in there with just a little bit more ink. Again, just make sure you ink your stamp up on a level platform. I'm just going to go back in there with a second stamp just to layer that up. I probably could have pushed down a little bit harder on that one, but I'm just being delicate because with solvent inks, they sit on the surface, we've learnt that. It means it has a tendency to want to smudge and shift. Now I know we can't see this moving, it's not really moving at all, but as I push down, it is compressing, so there is a tendency to want to just smudge ever so slightly. So you're better off building your image up gradually with something like this, and I'm actually really happy with that. That's come out really nice. Now I'm going to clean that off very quickly. If I'm really quick with the cleaning process of solvent inks, then I can again just use something quite light, like my wet wipe, going quite heavy with it, and I can take the worst of it off, and then I can turn around and just clean that later using some solvent StazOn cleaner if I want to. But all that's going to do, and I think it's just important to show you this, is it's just going to stain my stamp. And that really doesn't matter because I've used this stamp time and time again to do this sort of techniques with stamps and inks, and it just makes it a little bit more stained, but it really does not matter. So I'll pop that to one side. But what we've actually done there is we've got a stamped image on a piece of craft foil. Now that means I can go in there with alcohol markers, I could go in there with alcohol inks, anything else that's going to work on a non-porous surface. Now because that's sat on the surface, it does need to dry. It will just take a few minutes to dry off. You can speed the process up with heat setting, but that's just showing you what you can do with StazOn on craft foil. There's another one that I've done previously there, and that's been done a few hours ago, and I can turn around and just bring in one of our alcohol craft markers, and you'll see that that will work quite happily. If I just go into this petal here, because that's obviously going to work over the top of your craft foil, and you can then add colour to the project. So now we've learnt that we can use the stamped image with the alcohol markers. Now you need to just be a little bit careful because we also learnt that StazOn can be kind of re-energized, for want of a better word, and moved around by alcohol markers. But if you're quite quick and this is dry and it's set, then it's okay. We're just putting a very light amount of colour on there, and it's just to add and show you an example of how you can use those sorts of projects and how that would work. So I could do exactly that same technique, that bit of craft foil there as well. Other techniques that you can do with that, there's nothing stopping you, even using your StazOn, to go onto a ceramic tile. Yep, this is actually a ceramic kitchen tile. So you could turn around and go in and stamp that same stamped image that we just did on our craft foil, using that same StazOn ink onto anything that is non-porous. Glass, ceramic tiles are great. Just think if that was a coaster, and that is on there steadfast. Now, it may not be dishwasher safe, or you wouldn't necessarily put it in an area with an awful lot of high use, but I can sit there and give it a good scratch and give it a good rub, and it's really on there really, really fast, and that's not going to move. So something like on a coaster, it's going to get light wear, or maybe something that's decorative that's not going to get touched an awful lot, is going to last for absolutely years. Or maybe on a garden pot outside on some terracotta, look great. So just think about your stamps. So many different ways, as I said right at the beginning of this series, massive value in stamping and inking, because there's so much you can do. So yeah, ceramic tiles, just to show you that you can do that. And what about even stamping onto wood? Yeah, wood, I know. So let's take this piece here, and I tell you what, let's do something different. All the way along I've been saying putting your stamp to your actual project. Let's bring back in that large stamp, and this is another reason why I like working with large stamps so much. If I just give this a clean down, take off that previous ink that we had, and I'm going to use another pigment ink that we've got here, and I'm going to use a Memento, which is a Memento Luxe pigment ink. Great for multimedia. It's going to work on a multitude of different cardstocks. It's going to work on fabrics, and it's going to work on wood, and I'm going to prove that to you now. So what I'm actually going to do, just to show you different ways of working, as you become more comfortable with your stamps and your inks, there's so many different ways you can work. There's nothing stopping me actually putting a large, I wouldn't do this with a small stamp, but I'm actually going to use the large stamp, and I'm going to apply my ink down the middle of this stamp, because I only want a piece of it. There's no point in me wasting my ink. And then you can see that's covered really, really well. Pigment based. I've got just a normal piece of soft timber here. This could be a piece of furniture. It could be the bind of a book maybe, or a box, or a craft project, whatever you want. I'm actually going to place the piece straight down onto the stamp that I've just inked. Now you could even do this with circular items, because you could actually roll it over the large area of your stamp. Now it depends the finish that you want. I'm just giving it time to just move the ink off of the ink stamp onto the timber. I'm going to lift that off. Look at that. It's absolutely striking. So I've now lifted that design straight off that timber. So if you just remember where we were, completely clear timber. And now we've got, by choosing that colour, it almost looks like it's a heat embossed, almost laser engraved, dare I say. It's obviously completely flat, but it's actually a completely unique project that we've made using, once again, the knowledge that we've got about ink pads and just our rubber stamps. You can really see that value coming into play again. And all I've done here is taken another piece of timber, I've stamped it up, and I've actually just distressed it around the edges and added a little bit more detail and colour. But that could be great as a book spine, journal page spine, as I said, maybe a memory box. It's just showing you the process of what you can do, and it's so simple to do. So that's just using, our inks and our rubber stamps. Well, there you go. Really hope you've enjoyed that. I know it's lots to take in, but it's just to spark some creativity, give you some really different ideas, just how you can use the stamps and ink pads, maybe that you've already got, but how you can use those in different ways, exactly what they do, and just to give you some different techniques. But go out there, get creative, have a go, and above all, make sure you keep on crafting, and obviously make sure you hit the like and subscribe below, hit that bell, and then we will keep you notified next time there's a brand new video dropping.